for the most part, what I saw in my store was people that haven't skied for 20 or 25 years. I mean, for whatever reason. We had kids. We had, we moved away. We took up other sports. It doesn't, 101 reasons, but they stopped skiing a long time ago. And then all of a sudden with COVID, they didn't have anything that they couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't go to a restaurant. They couldn't do anything. And they kind of had money sitting around, right? So, I know, let's go skiing again. I don't know whether they'll stay with the sport again or not.
Hello, and welcome to episode number 70 of the Rose Bros podcast. This episode, we are joined by entrepreneur Lou Rosenfeld, owner of Lou's Performance Center. Lou's provides boot fitting services and sells high-performance ski equipment, including everything from skis, boots, and bindings to everything else in between. In short, Lou's specializes in adapting ski equipment with the knowledge of biomechanics and moderate pressure balance measuring tools to properly set up alpine skiers for their day on the slopes. Lou has also published numerous articles and academic papers on everything from the science of boot fitting to avalanche transceivers. In addition, Lou graduated from the University of Calgary with a Master's of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering and a specialization in Biomechanics, as well as the Oregon Institute of Technology with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. We sat down for a smooth cup of Rose Bros coffee and talked about COVID-19's impact on the ski industry, innovation and technology in ski equipment, the most important aspects to getting better as a skier, good books, and a lot more. Enjoy! So how was the season?
Oh, the season was good.
Remember the last time we talked, it was bittersweet because you had inventory problems.
Well, look, every business is different, right? I mean, next door to me is a quilting shop. They're setting records. I mean, they had lines around the block earlier. So it depends on where you were, but I don't think there's any sports store that hasn't had a really good year other than just dealing with all the extra difficulties to do with inventory and stuff coming late. And I mean, 101 things changed. And, we started taking appointments where before people could just walk right in and get boots fit anytime they wanted. But for a while there, we couldn't have more than 5 people in the store at a time. So there was constantly more work and new things to put in place and to adjust. But from a business standpoint, I mean, we were busy, right? Skiing was open. People had almost nothing else to do with their time. So the sports that were available did well. Like cycling is just flying, right?
In percentage terms, how much of an increase?
Now, I think I need to keep that private.
Like, it's been significant, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean...
So COVID's been great.
Well, I don't want to say it that way.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's been lots of other difficulties. Like, we decided to be open this summer for the first time, and we decided to do bikes, and now we can't get bikes. Right? So, and that, if you go into all the bike shops in town, they're all but sold out. They were sold out a month ago because they didn't get any inventory. So, as far as us getting into bikes this year, it hasn't worked out well at all. We've advertised them. We've spent money on the advertising, and we can't get them.
Did you sell all the ski gear out before the season ended? I remember that was the concern when we talked last.
We didn't sell ski gear out. I don't think any store did.
So you didn't run out?
No, we didn't run out. I mean, there's what's left. It's less than is typical, but... we brought in a lot. I mean, we increased orders early in the year.
I see.
In the beginning of the year, the stores were busy. So everybody increased their orders. For some people, depending what they did, that may not have worked. September and October were just crazy busy. Yeah. I should say October, November. So all of our suppliers called up and said, "Hey, we're selling out of everything. So if you're as busy as we are and you need stuff, you better get it now because we're not going to be able to send you anything in December."
Do you think that's going to continue next year?
I don't know.
So what are you doing for it?
Well, when I talk to our suppliers, they're in pretty good shape as far as getting stuff made. and there haven't been many. I should rephrase that. I don't sell clothing. Okay, so as far as getting skis and boots, there aren't many issues. But for the companies that get stuff, and because skis and boots are, at least what we sell, is mostly made in Europe. Okay, but some of the stuff, Hester gloves are made in China. I don't know yet what's going to happen there, but China has had big production and big shipping problems and big availability problems. I mean, things like zippers, they've run out of the world zippers and those kinds of things. So I don't know what's going to happen. The other big unknown is when I talk to my suppliers, they're telling me everything's good, but they're talking about from their standpoint. In other words, they've made their boots. It doesn't mean that with shipping as messed up as it is, they're completely out of control of that. It doesn't mean that they can predict that when they ship it next month that it's going to get from Europe to Canada on the regular schedule and not be a month late. I mean, right now stuff is 4 months late from China.
Do you think COVID's been an anomaly in the boom for outdoor sports and then it'll kind of graduate off?
No, I don't know. Well, look, there's been this big increase this past year. If that's the new norm, then, okay, we've had this big increase. And it means everyone will be selling more than they were in the past. But it doesn't mean that we'll continue growing at 30% every year. And to predict that, it just means we've had this
blip.
In order for the blip to hold, I mean, you know how this works, right? How often do you ski anymore?
Well, now that I pay for myself.
That's what I mean. So you don't ski as much as you used to, and you grew up racing, so you used to ski 100 days or more a year,
At
right?
least, yeah.
And that's what happens to everyone. So now we've got all these people that used to ski. I mean, we had new customers that also are brand new skiers. But for the most part, what I saw in my store was people that haven't skied for 20 or 25 years. I mean, for whatever reason. We had kids. We had, we moved away. We took up other sports. It doesn't, 101 reasons, but they stopped skiing a long time ago. And then all of a sudden with COVID, they didn't have anything that they couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't go to a restaurant. They couldn't do anything. And they kind of had money sitting around, right? So, I know, let's go skiing again.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they'll stay with the sport again or not, right? I mean, they have gear now. I don't have a way to answer yet. We'll see what happens.
But that affects your inventory ordering, doesn't it?
For sure. I don't have a clue what to do for next year. I mean, we've ordered and we're being as conservative as possible. I'm not predicting a 30 or 40% increase because once I place those orders for that and they're here, it belongs to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got to pay for it whether I get it sold or not. So it's a big question mark what happens next year.
And the manufacturers, they make all their gear in the summer so that it's all pre-made for the winter season. So you can't turn around in the winter, or like say Christmas, and say, I need more.
No, I can.
You can.
But it doesn't mean it's there because they're playing the same guessing game I am, right?
Okay.
I mean, they're looking at all their orders from all over, let's just say Canada and the United States. But in fact, they're looking at the orders from all over the world, and COVID's all over the world. So they're looking at all their orders and they're going, I don't know, are the orders right? Should we make 30% more than the world order because we think there's going to be another growth, or should we make less?
Right.
Because some of these orders are going to fall through when there's a resurgence. It's just a crazy time. It's a crazy time. I don't have a clue what to do.
Was it your best year ever in terms of sales?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's good. But it made up. But don't forget when we're talking about
a little
that,
stressful.
Well, when we talk about that, don't forget that the preceding year, we closed in March. So the preceding year was the worst year ever.
Right.
Okay? And there were lots of skis on the wall. Right? We were down 20% or so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big number. So all we did last year is kind of
Make up.
make up for the year before. Yeah, because we just shut April. I mean, we're lucky here. We have a long ski season, right? Being able to ski until the middle of May, it doesn't happen almost anywhere else in North America. So we have a long ski season.
Do you view yourself as an engineer of human performance or more of an entrepreneur?
I've never considered myself an entrepreneur. I mean, I know, I guess I am one,
Yeah.
but I decided I wanted to have a ski shop, and I never thought about, I mean, I had a man I met just a little while ago. He bought a car from me. We were talking about what he does, and he has a kind of an aerospace company based here in Alberta. And I asked him what he did in the company. He's an owner, but is he an engineer or what? And he said, Lou, I'm an entrepreneur. So he's had other businesses, right? He keeps starting businesses. That's what he does. I've never seen myself that way. So I'm an engineer. I'm good at the mechanical side of things and understanding whether it's a human balance side or working on a car. I used to do that. Whatever it is, I'm real good at mechanical things. So I consider myself an engineer and a mechanic, and I'm just fortunate that a whole bunch of what we do with skis and things relates to my engineering degree.
Kind of a conduit for your engineering.
Yeah, it works out. If I was at Sport Check, for instance, I'd be unfulfilled, right? Because there's no part of selling skis there that has anything to do with engineering. Here, where we specialize in balance and alignment and boot fit, and people come in like the woman who just walked out, right? Her husband, if he was going to ski, he isn't anymore. But if he was, he has 2 new knees and a new hip. There'd be all kinds of things we'd be doing with his equipment setup that are way outside the norm, right? In order to make him feel comfortable and strong and balanced again. That's what I get to do in here, and that fits my background.
What do you think the biggest opportunity for engineering and technology in skiing is these days?
That's interesting. I don't know. I don't. There's so many things going on. I don't know where it's going to lead. Right now, skis have been really stable. A friend of mine, I got something from him 2 days ago on LinkedIn, and there's a new company in Vancouver, and they're using a wearable. It's a footbed, but that footbed, this is very cool. The footbed measures all kinds of parameters about your gait, right? There's one in each foot. But rather than use it to improve your performance necessarily, they monitor all of the information on a daily basis using AI. And they look for changes in you, changes that they say are indicative of an injury maybe starting. So they're using it with some professional athletes and things like that, and it's brand new. And they're using it to help recover from an injury and see if your therapy is making the necessary changes to your gait to get you back to the way you used to be. It's a very cool idea. Maybe there's devices now you can put in your boots, and it tells you how much edge angle you have in your skis if you're working on carving skills. Maybe they'll build that stuff into skis. And Head has been using technology for years that as the ski vibrates more, so we would think of harder, for you and I, like racing, we would think of harder snow or higher speeds. The more the ski vibrates, the stiffer the ski gets. There's so much going on. I don't even know what's out there to know where we'll end up. But man, there's lots of neat technology available.
Has there been a lot of technological improvement in skiing? And
well,
some people would argue that there isn't. Because it's the same.
What are we talking about? If you're talking about vastly different materials, there's some.
That's what I mean.
If you're talking about materials, I mean, and I can't be exactly right because there are some, like Head uses a fairly new material, graphene.
Okay.
But overall, I think, in my opinion, I think skis from a material standpoint are more alike than they are different relative to what they were in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
The shapes, on the other hand, are vastly different, and skis are completely different from what they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the materials are probably more the same than they are different.
It seems like when they went parabolic, that was a big step. But ever since then, maybe not as much, or has there been major improvements?
No, I think there still have been. First we went to more shape, and then they started making skis much wider.
Okay.
I mean, the original shape skis weren't 115 millimeters underfoot to float in powder. Right. And they didn't have rocker in the tips or any of those things. So there's been lots of experiments. Some have gone away. Like for a while we had full rocker skis. Right, as a powder ski. That didn't work out so well.
For sure.
They're pretty much gone. I mean, there are still some out there, but for the most part, they're gone. But at the same time, there's virtually no all-mountain skis out there now that don't have some rocker in the tip.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have rocker in the tip and maybe rocker in the tail, or they don't have enough that they look like an inverted U, and the tips and tails are bouncing on the way down the hill, but they still have rocker. And I had a pair of Rossi race skis in here, Fist skis, just last week, and they have rocker in the tip. So rocker is here, and I can't imagine it's going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
We went to one extreme with full rockered skis, and we've come back to something that works better overall. But ski shape is still improved. We got the first parabolic skis or carving skis or shape skis, whatever we want to call them. It's all the same. Those were, the end of the 90s.
Yep.
But since then, I mean, those skis were still 65 millimeters underfoot, just like a standard straight ski or a racing ski. They were just wider at the tip and tail, so they do more turning by themselves. But since then, we've got skis that are 115 underfoot and float in powder like a water ski, and we've got skis with rocker that just effortlessly start a turn, and yeah.
Is there one part of the ski equipment business, maybe boots or skis or components of the skis or components of the boots, that have really seen improvement over other parts, or is there one area?
Improvement. I have to think of that word for a little bit.
Innovation?
Innovation, probably. Although we said that skis aren't, in terms of materials, most of them aren't much different. Bindings, I would say not much different. Boots, we're starting to play around with new plastics that are making boots lighter, for sure, and making them. Here's the problem with the word better, right? Is better in whose opinion?
Okay.
So the new boots are lighter. From my perspective, from a boot fitting perspective, I find the new plastics harder to work with. It doesn't mean, though, that we can't make them just as comfortable in the end. I just find it, honestly, more difficult. They're more sensitive to temperature. You have to be more careful with them. With the older plastics, and we still use the older plastics. Race boots are still all the older plastics, and actually, most high-performance boots are still the older plastics. Not all, but most. The older plastics, if you stretch them and you accidentally stretched it too much, you can't always know. If you heated it up again, it went back to where it was. So you could make a mistake and then undo the mistake, and you had some room to play around until you got it right. The new plastics don't do that so much. You stretch it and they stay there. So if you end up with more than you want and nobody's happy, you're getting another boot out of a box. So from my standpoint, I'd rather work with the old plastics.
Interesting. Is there one area of ski equipment you think needs a huge improvement or needs work, or if you could spend a year working on, you would? What part of the ski equation needs work?
I guess, from my standpoint as a boot fitting shop. And I think that not from a technology standpoint, although there's probably things I haven't dreamed of that, we could do to make boots a little bit better. But from a shape standpoint, I think a lot of the industry still believes that if there's more room in boots, the boots are more comfortable. And so we still have boots that are honestly way too big for most people in terms of volume. And from a boot fitter standpoint, I find boots that are snugger are more comfortable. And what happens to people, so I would say it would be great to work on the shape. What happens to people and to the manufacturers is that people come into the store, because most stores, now I get in trouble when my competitors listen to this. Most shops don't do the same job with altering the shape of boots that we specialize in, okay? So not all shops, but some shops for sure still just, if you don't find a boot comfortable, they give you another boot. And if it's still not comfortable, they give you another boot.
Heat it up quick and send you out.
And if it's still not comfortable, then they give you a size bigger.
Right.
And eventually you say, oh, this is wonderful.
Just punch it with like a screwdriver, yeah.
And then you leave and you go skiing, and of course the boot's too big and you ski terrible, and you buckle it really tightly and you freeze your feet and your feet cramp, and nothing about it is right, except that it was comfortable in the store. So I would love to see a major effort that says, the boot may not be comfortable in the store, but the store knows how to make it comfortable for you. Let them do that. But we don't do that. So we make the boots a little bigger inside because people will find them more comfortable when they first put them on. And from my standpoint, I've got almost no interest in whether you think it's comfortable when you first put it on, right? I care whether it's snug enough on your foot to hold your foot in place without you buckling it very tightly. So I know you won't be tempted to crush your foot with it in order to keep your foot from moving around. I care that it holds your foot in place really well so it'll ski well. And if all of that's right, then you say, well, it hurts me here, wherever it hurts. I can almost always fix that.
Yeah.
And then you leave with a really comfortable boot that you don't have to buckle really tightly, so it stays comfortable. And it doesn't get loose over time because it didn't start out being too big. So I would love to see an effort that talked really more about boot fitting as a way to buy boots instead of just trying on boots all day.
What percentage of World Cup athletes do you think have optimized their gear?
Oh, 100%.
100%?
100%.
So there's not much room on the table for...
Oh, I didn't say that. Because you said have optimized their gear. So to me, have optimized their gear means they're working with gear set up as part of skiing better.
Okay.
I think 100%. It doesn't mean they've always found the optimum setup. Okay, and that's the distinction I'm making. But 100%, I think, work with all the things we do here in the store. What happens is that recreational skiers, this is a problem always, and I've always been just good enough at sports because I didn't compete in ski racing, right? And I used to play a lot of racquetball and I played tournaments, but I never was at a really high level. I didn't play racquetball every day. I didn't take lessons. I've done a lot of sports just pretty well because I like sports, and once I start doing a sport, I keep doing it, so I get good at it. But what happens with most recreational skiers, and I hear it all the time, is that they don't wax my skis. I don't want them to go faster, right? It scares me if I go too fast. I want my skis to be slow. Or I don't need a ski that good. I don't ski that well. I don't need, or that boot's a race boot. I don't want to be in a race boot. Race boots are for racers. When to me, it's the opposite. When I go out with really good skiers, they can be on the junkiest gear there is.
Right.
And they're still great skiers, right? They ski better than everybody on the hill,
for sure,
regardless of what garbage they're skiing on. The people who don't have the skill to do that is me and maybe not you, but
it's all relative. Yeah.
A ton of intermediate skiers, right, who don't have those skills. So I think of it as the opposite. The intermediate skiers need everything to be as optimal as possible because they haven't spent 200 or more days a year for the past 20 years on skis with a coach looking over their shoulder telling them what they're doing wrong. I mean, when we look at World Cup skiers, they've essentially taken thousands of lessons, right, in their life. Every day they're skiing for 5 hours or 4 hours, whatever it is, and someone's watching every damn turn they make.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's how you get to be that good.
Knowing that, though, do you think there is room for huge improvements at the super high levels for ski equipment and technology?
Well, I don't know, again, because I don't know the technologies we're looking at. But I know that elite level skiers, so World Cup athletes, spend a lot of time on gear setup.
Yeah.
They experiment with binding position. They experiment with boot stiffness. They experiment with ramp angles. They experiment with all the stuff we do in here.
Yeah.
They do it all the time, right? So their gear doesn't come from a factory, and the engineer in the factory says, "There's the right position on the ski for your bindings. Don't mess with it." That doesn't happen at their level, right? They test
for
it.
Sure.
They find
for sure,
and it may even be that they find what works on that course and they change it for another course because the next course is icier, right? And they need a little different setup for ice, and then the next one. Oh, it snowed 5 inches last night. Well, we can't use the same setup, right? So they're changing gear setup all the time.
The fancy term's complexity theory. Do you think we get too much into the weeds and that we don't really understand everything when it comes together? It's too much to understand? Skiing is so complex.
Yeah, but no, I don't. I'm not saying it's not complex. I don't think
it's too much.
It's too much. I think what happens is that people don't use a scientific approach. Scientific approach simplifies everything, right? And at the scientific approach level, things are pretty damn simple. You don't buy a new ski and say, I wonder if my edge angle should be steeper. I want my ski sharper, okay? And I wonder if the bindings need to be moved forward. Maybe they're back too far. And I wonder if my boot's too soft, it needs to be stiffer. And some people would just change all that at one time. And then it doesn't work or it does work.
Right.
If it does work, they don't know what worked, why it worked. If it doesn't work, they don't know why. It just didn't work. Where at a scientific level, I would say, here's what we're going to test today. We're going to test the sharpness. That's all we're going to test. We're not changing anything else.
Right.
And we're going to do that for a while, right? And see what you think. And then when we figure out what you like, then we'll test binding position. And we'll change one thing at a time. And then it's simple, right? It's just one thing. Move the bindings forward, move the bindings back. What do you think? Did you like one more than the other? Yeah, it's better here. It's not so good here. Okay, let's try again. And then if you approach it that way, I think things are pretty basic.
Even with all the variables in the sport of skiing, like snow and your body.
Well, from a recreational standpoint, you can't get it completely right? Because as you say, I'll go skiing one day and it'll just be a sheet of ice.
Yeah.
And then I'll go skiing the next day and it'll be a powder day. But maybe it's only a powder day for the morning, and then the clouds come in and it's a whiteout, and now I'm back to using my big fat powder skis on groomers, right? But I just set them up for powder. So, when it comes to recreational skiing, it's really hard because it is super variable.
Kind of a shot in the dark almost.
Yeah. So I think what you do for recreational skiing is you make your gear as easy to use as possible. And you don't, for instance, if you move your bindings back on the ski, and lots of skis, in my opinion, have the bindings too far back. If you move the bindings back on the ski the skis become more stable at speed. Absolutely. But they become harder to turn.
Yeah.
Pretty much absolutely. They become less turnable. So you have to work them more. So from my standpoint, I'm not skiing every day in long GS turns, at speed. So I want the ski somewhere in the middle of things where they're reasonably stable at speed, but they're also easy to ski and I feel balanced and they're quick and lively.
Yeah.
So personally, I would always set my skis to ski that way.
Yeah.
Right? Unless I had one pair of skis that was the skis I used, because today I know what I'm doing. I'm going to groomers and I'm going to work on GS turns.
Even at the World Cup level, if you could say on one end, everything's been done, optimized and figured out from a technical perspective, optimized, but on the other end, we're still kind of shooting in the dark. How far do you think we've gone in that, even on the World Cup level? Are those guys in the grand scheme of things still kind of shooting in the dark? Well,
I don't know. Because I don't work at the World Cup level. But those guys have lots of pairs of skis.
Yeah.
And they test. A downhiller will show up at a World Cup race with 10 or 15 pairs of skis.
A lot of work.
So they know a hell of a lot, right? There's still variations, right? You've got a run that's maybe 3,000 or 4,000 vertical feet.
Exactly.
And the top of the mountain is 15 degrees colder than the bottom of the mountain. And so the snow changes all through there. So you still can't get it just right.
That's what I mean.
But yeah, it can't be done. Right? You can only get it more right than someone else, right? It's like, I think, I've done some car racing.
Yep.
And, the setup of cars, if you're talking about a car for an Indy track or an oval, those cars don't go straight, right? They turn left.
Yep.
They're set up to turn left. Yeah. You can do that because all you're doing is turning left.
Yeah.
But if you take that car to a regular road course that has lefts and rights and uphills and downhills, you set it up completely differently. So I think there's lots of variations. But as a recreational skier, in my opinion, you just want your gear to be to perform, to be easy to use,
enjoyable.
Yeah, but to me, enjoyable means easy. I want it to be forgiving. I don't want to have to keep thinking about getting myself rebalanced. I don't want to fight my skis. I still may lose my balance. Skiing is an intense balance sport. Right? And a lot of the positions we're taught in skiing, the position we keep our body in to ski well is not it's not what you would do going down a hill, right?
It's counterintuitive.
It's counterintuitive. You don't lean down the hill, you lean up the hill, right? You get yourself close to the ground, so it's completely counterintuitive. So it has to be learned. So I want my skis to be set up in a way that just makes it as easy as possible for me to maintain my balance. I'm still going to lose my balance at times. I'm still going to get in situations where I don't react the way I want to because I'm not a World Cup skier. And sometimes I'm just, it's like, damn, that's scary. And all of a sudden I'm in the back seat, right? But I want my skis to be as forgiving of all that as possible.
How important do you think gear is for a skier in general?
Oh, I think it's really important.
There's the mental aspect, physical, gear, training, all that stuff put together. Would it be 30%, 40%?
I don't know how to put a number on it. More important than anything else is learning how to ski.
Yeah.
Right? Is taking lessons. I'm going to say not teaching yourself, because as we said, it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But it's really, you have to be either a gifted watcher or a really, in terms of watching people ski, or really a gifted athlete, I think, to be able to teach yourself the right position to ski, and then know that you're doing it, because you don't have any feedback. Nobody's videotaping you if you're just doing it yourself. You just assume you're doing it right, right? So I think the most important thing is to take ski lessons. And unfortunately, hardly anybody does, right? And I talked to the head of the Lake Louise Ski School years ago, and one of his comments was, seasons pass holders hardly ever take lessons. Well, a lot of the seasons pass holders are the best skiers on the hill. That's how they got there, by skiing a lot. But I do see a lot of pass holders that are intermediates and would like to ski better, but they don't take lessons. They just keep skiing.
So technique would probably be the most important part.
Yeah, I think learning technique and learning the right way to stand and learning what to do, I think taking lessons is without a doubt the most important thing. I know I own a ski shop. I should say equipment.
That's why I ask.
But no, it's learning to ski. It's taking lessons from well-qualified instructors. I take lessons all the time still.
It's kind of like golf. I can never get good at golf because I don't take lessons.
Yeah. Somebody has to tell you what you're doing wrong, right? Somebody has to be watching you and really giving you feedback. And without that, you can only give yourself feedback.
Yeah.
And if you're an intermediate skier, you don't know what feedback to give yourself, right? So what do you do to get yourself, how do you give yourself the correct feedback if you don't know what's right anyway? So I think lessons are really important. After that, I think the next most important thing is ski boots. I mean, ski boots are the steering, right? If your boots don't fit well, I mean, if they hurt a lot, if they don't fit in well in that they hurt a lot, you can't ski well because your feet are killing you. And chances are each time you make a good move, they hurt more because that puts more pressure in the turn and the pain just goes higher. Yeah. So and if they don't hurt, if they're comfortable, but they're way too big, and I see that all the time, then when you move your feet and you move your legs to make your skis do something, nothing happens the way it's supposed to because your foot's moving all around inside your boot. So the next thing is boots. Then after that, there's, I guess, a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, those are the main ones. Anyone ever come in already totally optimized with their gear and you kind of have to send them out? Has that ever happened to you?
No, what's really nice in here is that what I like is that I see a lot of beginner intermediate skiers who really want to get better. Okay. And they don't come in and buy a beginner ski. They buy an advanced ski that has enough performance that they can grow into it, right? Instead of grow away from it. And they talk to me about how often they take lessons and they actively want to become a better skier. And when I put them on really good skis, instead of, there are beginner intermediate skis. They're comfortable at slow speeds. They don't hold really well, but they're forgiving and easy to maneuver. When I put them on a higher performance ski, a ski that doesn't vibrate as much at speed and grips better, they can feel it and it excites them and they ski better right away and they become more adventurous right away. I think that's great. A lot of people buy gear that isn't really good enough to make it easy for them to improve.
Yeah, for sure.
And they don't keep it in good enough condition. That's a big deal.
Yep. Tuning.
People come in, I've skied 15 days this year and 15 days last year. I tuned my skis the beginning of last year. Do you think they need tuned now? Well, I don't even need to look at the skis to know if they need to be tuned now.
For sure.
Right? Yeah, they need to be tuned now. They needed to be tuned after 5 days last year. So they're so dull that they wouldn't even hold on a powder day.
Absolutely.
Right? So keeping skis sharp is important. That's maybe the next thing on the list. I mean, is that people let their skis get way too dull, and then they just don't hold. And even if you do move well, I mean, the skis are so round they might as well be a dowel. They might as well be a wooden dowel, and so there's nothing there to grip. They just slide. I'm sure. I mean, it's not a secret, but when I sell someone new skis, for certain, some of the difference that they're feeling is, wow, Lou got me on a great pair of skis, which of course I think is great. Mm-hmm. But there's almost certainly some of that is just that Lou just got me on a pair of skis that are sharp, mm-hmm. and I've never kept my skis sharp. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm feeling is what it feels like to be on a ski that's tuned.
Yeah, for sure.
If I let the new skis I just bought from Lou get as dull as my old skis, Lou's great new skis are going to ski just as badly as those did too, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember coaching a few years ago, and that was like the kids even. It was, you could tell the kids you'd sharpen their skis every day.
Yeah.
And it was obvious, even for kids.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
So tuning is huge, and people don't tune their skis nearly enough.
No.
And especially here. Now, you'd think I would say like especially back east where it's icier, but especially here where it's so rocky. If you're skiing all around the mountain, I don't care what ski area it is. Not so much Nikiska or wind sport, right? Mm-hmm. There's not so many rocks. They make a lot of snow. It's all groomed. That's different. But if you're skiing mm-hmm. at Castle or Lake Louise or Sunshine or any, and you're above timberline, there's everything you're skiing on is just covered up rock. It's mm-hmm. not like somebody's lawn is underneath that snow. So you're hitting rocks all the time.
For sure.
Yeah.
Ice burn, mm-hmm. if you let your ski go too long and it dries out,
Yeah.
Or what trends do you see occurring right now in ski technology, or where do you think it's kind of headed?
Well, I don't know that anything is going on with skis other than some new materials but nobody comes to me and says, hey Lou, this is what we're working on, right? Everything is quiet. Right?
Proprietary.
What I'm seeing is new materials in boots. And the new materials are, the plastic softens at a lower temperature, so it's easier to work with the boot and make it comfortable for someone. So it's given shops that aren't, that where the owner doesn't necessarily have a master's in biomechanics or whatever, it's made it easier to fit boots. From my standpoint, like I say, it's a little bit harder because the plastic's less forgiving. But if I'm just trying to get it into a new shape, with the older boots, I go in the back, I pull out a heat gun, I've got to get it very hot, and I have a press, and I have all kinds of tools I need to use. With the new plastics, I can heat the whole boot in an oven. I don't have to get it nearly as hot. I put the boot on your foot, and to some degree, the abnormalities of your foot will reshape the boot. Now, it won't reshape it as much as I can reshape it with a press and a grinder and everything else, but it reshapes it more than the old plastics, which wouldn't have done anything. You'd heat the boot up in an oven, put it on, and once it cooled off, it'd be in exactly the same shape as it was before. So there's things happening that make it easier to get boots that are at least reasonably comfortable. For most people, I don't think that the molding process we're using now of putting boots in an oven and then putting it on your foot, I don't think it gets you a boot that's as comfortable as a good boot fitting shop can make it, but it gets it more comfortable than they used to be.
So more in the boots area than the skis, or maybe that's more your specialty?
No, I think so. We said, if we looked across at the skis, with the exception of one or two of special materials and some carbon fiber and things to make them lighter, most of them are still wood core, fiberglass, new shapes, but pretty much the same materials. So there's more work going on in boots. I am not aware of work going on in bindings, but there probably should be.
Yeah.
We've got, ACL tears are now the most numerous ski injury. Yeah. It used to be sprained thumbs, right? And only one binding company has come out with something new. Other binding companies talk about different stuff they've developed, but for the most part, bindings still move in the same direction. Everything is exactly the same as it was 50 years ago. We have bindings that are more sealed up than they used to be, so they're more impervious to rock and, going through mud and things like that. But the overall movement's the same. The only binding I can think of that's done anything different is knee bindings. And, they have an inward release at the heel that certainly reduces pressure on the ACL.
Almost like a touring binding.
No.
Okay.
Most touring bindings don't. I see where you're going with this. Touring bindings, a tech binding, so a Dynafit binding or any of those, generically called tech bindings now, release inward at the heel. You're right. But they release inward at the heel and outward at the heel with exactly the same amount of force. Okay? So whereas a knee binding does not release outward at the heel, it only releases inward at the heel with a very low force. So a tech binding releases in and outward at the heel with the same amount of force as it would take to release in and out at the toe in a binding that released out the toe. All we have is movement at the heel instead of movement at the toe. The force, everything's the same. Knee bindings have a releasable toe, and they have an inward release at the heel that's quite light. And so it helps alleviate pressure on your ACL when you're twisting that direction. So I think it's a good design. It makes sense. Nobody else is doing it. Now that may be because knee has a patent on it, and maybe things are coming. I don't know.
Okay.
But right now it's an interesting design.
What gear do you use? What are you skiing on?
Well,
for anyone listening, and anyone does listen to this,
I ski on everything in the store.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I change skis all the time. I don't change boots all the time because I'd have to have 4 or 5 pairs of boots, and I have to get them all fit. And that doesn't make sense because just like you or anyone else, I mean, my foot has a shape.
For sure.
And there's a boot in here that is most like the shape of my foot, so I wouldn't ski something else that doesn't fit me well. So for years I've skied Head Raptors and Technica Mach 1 LVs. I have a fairly low volume foot. My instep isn't very high. Those boots have a low instep, so they fit me well. So I've got no reason to go buy another boot with a higher instep just to go out and ski it and not like it, right? It doesn't work for me. With skis, I ski everything in the store. I mean, we have them all in demo. Yeah. There's some, obviously, I like more than others that suit my style more than others. But at the same time, I mean, I need a ski for a powder day, and I need a ski for making short turns down men's downhill on an icy day. So I use everything. I mean, one of the things we do here is make certain that everybody in the store tests all the skis regularly.
I remember you saying that, yeah.
So that when you and I talk about skis, I'm giving you firsthand information rather than what the rep told me. It's not that what the rep told me isn't right, but the rep doesn't tell me about feel and, how to not sell the ski. Yeah. They tell me how to sell the ski, for sure. Right? I want to know how this ski is different from that ski, and so once I know what you like in your skis, I know which of those skis to pick for you, which one you're most likely to be happy with, or the most happy with, maybe. But I ski everything.
What are you reading these days?
What am I reading?
Yeah.
Oh.
I always ask that on podcasts to people.
And the problem when you ask me is that my memory for this kind of stuff, I'm listening to some podcasts on memory. Okay. And my memory for this stuff is so bad that even while I'm reading a book, I forget the name of it. But the book I'm finishing right now is it's about borderless land without borders, I think. And it's written by a woman who rode her bike across all the stands and through Tibet, China.
Interesting.
And it's about what the adventure was like, and she did it with a friend, and it took more than a year, and it's about all these countries that you can't see the border and all the problems that creates.
I'll have to remember that.
It's a good book.
Yeah.
It's very well written.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it a lot. But I also just started a book called, and again, I forget the exact title. I think it's How to Be Indistractable.
Okay.
And it talks about the difference between being focused and being indistractable.
Okay.
And I have ADD. So it's something that, you know, back when I was in grade school, I don't even think they knew what ADD was, right? I just got yelled at for not paying attention.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, you know, I turned out to be smart enough.
You weren't over-medicated, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
But this book talks about how focus and distractibility are two different things, and how what you want to work on is not letting things distract you, which isn't the same as focusing. It's learning how to not have a bird fly by and you jump up and watch the bird for 5 minutes, right? Or how to, when an email comes in and your computer notifies you that an email comes in, you still keep your nose in the spreadsheet, right? Because that's what you have to do. The email might be of no importance whatsoever.
For sure.
So it's a really good book. It especially speaks to me because it's a big problem I have. So I just started that. I opened it last night. But I heard it through a podcast.
Okay.
And there's a podcast I'm really enjoying called The Knowledge Project.
Shane Parrish.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
It's wonderful.
He's from Ottawa.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So you listen to it?
All the time.
I just learned about it just 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't even remember how now. I think it just came in one day.
A great newsletter also.
I'll have to yeah. So I'm listening to a lot of those podcasts because a lot of what I'm learning about is how to focus, how to make decisions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great newsletter, great website, great podcast.
Good.
Yeah.
I'll check it out more.
Have you read War and Peace?
No.
Okay. I just ordered it.
I'm sure you'll like it. There's a whole bunch of books I haven't read.
Okay.
And that's one of them. And I don't know that it's on the list of one I'll get to.
I feel like I have to read that before I die. It's just one of those books you got to get through.
Maybe you do. There's a whole lot of classics.
Yeah.
That, you know, you could read all the works of Steinbeck.
Exactly.
There's a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that's great. That's a great combo.
It's been a nice talk.
Thanks for doing this.
We should do this periodically.
Yeah. Thanks, Lou.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We'll wrap it up there. Okay. Hey, thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you liked what you heard, check out rosebros.ca, where we will have upcoming shows. You can also find our coffee and chocolate there, where we plant one tree for every bag or bar sold through our partnership with One Tree Planted, a cool not-for-profit organization focused on global reforestation. Until next time, happy coffee.